The rolling suitcase bumped against my heel as I hurried through Terminal 7, my phone buzzing insistently in my bag. I could smell the faint sweetness of Hawaiian coffee mixing with the antiseptic airport air, and I tugged at the strap of my canvas tote, feeling the weight of everything I'd packed for the family. $20,000, every cent meticulously planned, and yet, somehow, I still felt the tension coiling tight in my chest. Mom, my youngest, Ethan, tugged on my sleeve, his small face earnest. "You forgot to buy you." I froze. My heart skipped. He didn't understand money or vacations yet, but his words hit harder than any adult criticism ever could. I stared down at him, caught between disbelief and a humor I didn't quite feel. Every suitcase, every airline ticket, every hotel room had been booked by me. Every itinerary carefully orchestrated. And somehow, in his tiny, innocent way, he had just reminded me how often I forgot myself. I smoothed the front of my crisp blouse, the silk brushing lightly against my skin, and took a deep breath. The sun gleamed through the terminal windows, spotlighting travelers in motion. I watched families embrace, couples argue, and parents drag kids kicking and screaming toward gates, and I realized I'd always been the organizer, the fixer, the one everyone relied on. But when was the last time I'd done something just for me? Years earlier, I was barely out of college, fresh-faced and eager, clutching a stack of rejection letters like tiny daggers in my hands. I had returned home to suburban Chicago, full of dreams that my family seemed to dismiss with polite nods and quiet sighs. "You need to be practical, Lila," my father said one evening, his hands pressed against the kitchen counter, the veins on his forearms taut. "A stable job, benefits, a future you can count on. Stop chasing these ideas." My mother, always softer but no less firm, nodded. "We just don't want you to get hurt." I felt my chest tighten, my throat burning as their voices filled the small, familiar kitchen. I shook my hands, the tremor betraying the storm inside me. It wasn't that I didn't love them, it was that I loved myself, and that love demanded risk, demanded growth, demanded independence. Grandma June, perched in her worn armchair, watched quietly from the corner, knitting needles clicking softly. When I finally stormed out, she caught my wrist gently. "Lila," she said, her voice calm but unwavering, "don't let fear decide your worth. You have fire in you. Always have. Use it, even if everyone else doubts it." Her words became my talisman. That night, in my tiny apartment cluttered with half-packed boxes and dreams bigger than the ceiling, I made a promise to myself. I would build a life where I didn't just survive, I would thrive. Where my success wouldn't be dictated by anyone else's doubts or dismissals. And when I did, I would never forget the little victories, or the people who believed in me when no one else did. It wasn't easy. Each day was a battle against self-doubt, against whispered judgments from people who couldn't see my vision. But every no I received was like a step on a ladder I was determined to climb. I tucked Grandma June's advice into my heart like a secret, letting it guide me through sleepless nights, long commutes, and countless moments when giving up seemed easier than fighting. I found my first real opportunity in a cramped co-working space downtown, its air tinged with stale coffee and ambition. A woman named Clara Reynolds, sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, had taken one look at my portfolio and said, "You either sink or swim here, Lila. I hope you're ready to swim." I nodded, heart pounding, and in that moment, I promised myself I wouldn't just float, I would make waves. The nights were long. My apartment smelled of takeout and printer ink, and I often fell asleep with spreadsheets still glowing on my laptop screen. I doubted myself constantly. Could I really make a living doing this? Could I really prove them all wrong? The people who'd whispered I'd never succeed, who'd assumed I'd settle into mediocrity. But little victories kept me going. The first client who genuinely valued my ideas. The first contract that paid enough to cover my bills, and then some. The first quiet moment when I realized I could actually breathe without fear of someone else controlling my path. Clara became my mentor, guiding me through the maze of business etiquette, negotiation, and strategy. She had her own demons, and somehow, Sharing victories and losses with her made them less heavy. Don't show them everything, she'd say. Success is a story best revealed on your terms. And so I learned to keep my triumphs quiet, posting only vague updates on social media, letting the world and my family assume I was still struggling. I invested in myself. Courses, networking, small business ventures, a few smart investments that grew quietly but steadily. I discovered a rhythm, a pattern, a method for turning effort into tangible results. There were setbacks, of course, missed deadlines, failed projects, deals that slipped through my fingers, but each time I rose again, steadier and smarter. Soon, the life I dreamed of became tangible. I rented a small, stylish apartment overlooking the city skyline, decorated it with little touches that reflected who I was, framed prints from trips I'd taken alone, books stacked haphazardly, a few pieces of art that made me smile. Every morning, I brewed coffee and imagined the life I wanted, not just for me, but for the family I loved, even if they didn't realize it yet. And slowly, carefully, I began saving, not just for security, but for something extraordinary, a family vacation that would remind everyone that I was capable of giving and loving without needing recognition. A trip that was completely on my terms. A trip to Hawaii. Every detail was perfect. From the tickets to the resort reservations, from the excursions to the tiny treats tucked into each suitcase for my kids, I orchestrated it all. And all the while, I kept my family unaware of the extent of my success. It was a quiet kind of power, but a power I cherished. And I was ready to reveal it, on my terms, in my time, in the most unforgettable way. The moment we stepped off the plane in Hawaii, I felt a thrill of quiet satisfaction. The warm breeze carried the scent of salt and tropical flowers, and I gripped Ethan's hand, feeling the excitement radiate from him. My husband, Jason, wheeled the luggage behind us, oblivious to the subtle orchestration I'd arranged. When we arrived at the villa, the driver pulled up to a sprawling property framed by lush greenery, a private pool glittering under the sun, and terraces that overlooked the turquoise ocean. I watched Jason's jaw drop as he took in the view. Ethan squealed and ran to the pool, his tiny hands reaching for the water. This is incredible," Jason muttered, eyes wide. I didn't know. I let him pause, letting the moment sink in. I loved the surprise, but more than that, I loved the subtle power in watching them realize that I had made all of this possible. Inside, the villa was immaculate, a seamless blend of modern design and personal touches I had curated, hand-picked artwork on the walls, cozy throws in the living spaces, and a fully stocked kitchen with all of our favorite foods. Every detail had my fingerprints on it. I watched them explore, letting curiosity guide their movements while I stood quietly, savoring the reaction. Then, Ethan tugged on my sleeve again, his small voice full of wonder. "Mom, this is amazing. But you didn't get anything for yourself." I smiled, kneeling to meet his gaze. "I did, sweetie. I always do." I let the words hang, letting him think it over. Later, as Jason sank into the terrace chair with a cocktail, he looked at me differently. "Lila, how did you manage all this?" I took a slow breath, letting the warmth of the Hawaiian sun wash over me. "I've been working quietly for years," I said. "Every choice I've made, every risk I've taken, this was all for us. I didn't want anyone to worry. I wanted to show you that I could handle it, that we could have this life without waiting for anyone else to hand it to us." His expression shifted from awe to a kind of reverent disbelief. We had no idea. And that was exactly the point. I had kept my successes private not out of secrecy, but out of necessity. I wanted to prove, first to myself and then to them, that I could stand on my own, that I could create beauty, security, and joy without needing constant recognition. Ethan, ever the innocent, ran back to the pool, shouting, "Mom, can we go swimming now?" His joy reminded me why I had done all of this. Jason stepped closer, hesitating, then said softly, "I'm proud of you. More than I can say." I nodded, the satisfaction settling deep in my chest. They finally saw me, not just as a mother or a wife, but as a capable, independent woman who had quietly shaped our lives from behind the scenes. For the first time in years, I felt fully visible, fully acknowledged, and completely empowered. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains and painted the sky in shades of coral and gold, I gathered my family in the villa's open living room. Jason sat on the couch, still processing, while Ethan sprawled on the rug, fidgeting with a pool float. I could see the curiosity and slight apprehension in their eyes. This was the moment where quiet empowerment became clear authority. "I want to be honest with you both," I began, my voice calm but firm. "This vacation, this life we're enjoying, it's been made possible by choices I've made quietly for years. And I want us to move forward in a way that respects all of us, not just me carrying the weight silently." Jason's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" I smiled gently, though there was steel beneath it. "It means we need to share responsibilities, be accountable, and recognize each other's efforts. Ethan, you'll start helping in small ways, packing your own bag, keeping track of your things so you understand that we all contribute. Jason, I need us to plan finances together, to trust each other without assumptions, and to support our family decisions equally. And I paused, letting my words land. I will continue to pursue my career and independence, and I expect respect for that, not judgment or interruption." Ethan's eyes widened, but he nodded solemnly, and I knew the lesson had taken root. Jason exhaled slowly, processing the shift, but there was something in his gaze, a quiet admiration, the recognition that I was no longer the quiet, unseen partner he'd underestimated. I continued, my tone blending warmth and firmness. "This isn't about control. It's about balance. We all grow, we all contribute, and we all respect the space each of us needs. That's the only way this family thrives, not by me sacrificing myself endlessly for everyone else." The weight lifted slightly from my chest as I watched them absorb the message. I realized that power doesn't have to be loud to be transformative. Sometimes it's subtle, steady, and unwavering. It's in setting boundaries with love, in guiding rather than demanding, and in holding space for growth, both for yourself and for the people you care about. Jason finally reached for my hand, a tentative gesture of partnership, not ownership. "I understand now," he said quietly. "And I want to do this with you." Ethan cheered, breaking the tension with his boundless energy, and I laughed, the sound light and free, echoing through the villa. For the first time, the family I loved was beginning to see the real me, capable, independent, and deeply committed to all of us thriving together. The balance had shifted, but the love remained, stronger, clearer, and more honest than ever. The following days in Hawaii were different from any vacation I'd ever planned. The sun still rose over turquoise waters, and the air still carried that sweet tropical scent, but something deeper had shifted. Jason helped Ethan pack his small backpack each morning, double-checking that he had sunscreen, snacks, and the little journal I had encouraged him to keep. And I allowed myself to simply be. No meticulous planning, no silent sacrifices, just enjoying the laughter and warmth of my family. Ethan ran to the pool every day, shouting and squealing with unrestrained joy. One evening, as we watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and violet, he crawled onto my lap and whispered, "Mom, I'm glad you bought you this time." I held him close, feeling a swell of gratitude and love. "I'm glad too, sweetie," I murmured. It wasn't about the vacation or the money or even the surprise. It was about finally giving myself permission to be seen, to be celebrated, and to let my family see the real me. Later, as I flipped through a photo album I had started quietly over the years, images of small successes, solo trips, awards, and late-night victories, I realized how far I had come. Grandma June's words echoed in my mind, "Don't let fear decide your worth." I had carried that advice through sleepless nights, setbacks, and moments of doubt, and it had led me here. Jason rested his hand on mine, his touch warm and grounding. "You've always been amazing," he said softly. "I just needed to see it through your eyes." I smiled, the satisfaction of years of hard work and quiet persistence radiating through me. The villa was no longer just a house, the vacation no longer just a trip. It was a symbol. A symbol that love, independence, and empowerment could coexist. That I could give freely without losing myself. That boundaries and compassion could thrive together. Ethan splashed in the pool again, his laughter carrying through the air, and I felt an unshakable sense of peace. I had created this moment, this balance, this life. I had done it quietly, with patience, with heart, and with unwavering belief in myself. And as the last rays of sun disappeared behind the horizon, I whispered to myself, a line I would carry forever. I can give the world to others, but I will never forget to give myself.